Welcome to the 13th presentation in our series on action learning. We're very pleased that you are joining us. This presentation is about choosing projects in action learning programs. I'm Carter McNamara of Authenticity Consulting. We're providing this series to make action learning more available and more accessible to everyone. This presentation is one in a series, and they are best viewed in order, so please be sure to visit the website listed below for more information on the series as well as more information about our company. So now, let's get started. From your knowledge about the action learning process and each of its key elements, you're ready to start designing your own program. For now, it's important to select what project your single project program will be used to address, or in the case of a multi-project program, to get clear on how each of your members can carefully select his or her own project. The best way to select a project is by using an assessment. Most people already use that approach, they just don't realize that they're using it. So in this presentation, we'll review the two broad types of assessments and which type you should use. Then we'll cover the stages in doing a typical assessment. We'll discuss assessments to identify projects for individuals in action learning, along with the typical types of results that individuals use projects to achieve. We'll also discuss assessments to identify projects for organizations, and the typical types of results that organizations use projects to achieve. People often wonder, what if I choose the wrong project? We'll discuss that question as well. It's also very useful to know the type of application that your project is, because then you can start referencing literature about that particular application to get even more advice. The choice of what a group or member works on is critical to the success of the process. One of the best ways to select a project is by using assessments. An assessment gathers information about a situation or an event and then comes to a conclusion about it. Informal assessments are what most of us do all the time in life and work. We get information about a situation, we analyze it, and we come to some conclusion about it. We might even decide what we're going to do about it. There is no certain form or procedure for doing these informal assessments, but they can be very useful if we're careful about what we're seeing, what we're believing, and what we're concluding. The action learning process itself can be an informal assessment. As members share questions to help gather insights about a situation, what realistically can be done about it, and how to learn at the same time. A formal assessment is what the phrase implies. It has a specific form to it. There's a plan. For example, the plan specifies the purpose of the assessment, what data will be gathered, how it will be analyzed, and how conclusions will be made. Formal assessments are best for situations in which conclusions are extremely important. Both types of assessments can be useful in action learning, whether it's a single project or a multi-project program. In the case of a single project program, the organization usually selects the project, often as a result of a formal assessment. In the case of a multi-project program, each member selects a project, many times from a rather informal assessment. In either situation, the project should be selected carefully, so the guidelines in this topic will be useful to either type of action learning program. People might already be familiar with this process but not refer to it as an assessment. For example, it's used in the common employee performance review in companies. The process starts with the individual or organization selecting the focus of the assessment, whether it's on an individual, team, organizational function, or the entire organization itself. Then some type of performance standard is adopted for the focus of the assessment. For example, there might be certain best practices, suggested competencies, or capabilities. Then the current performance is measured, whether informally or formally. Hopefully it's the latter, because that's usually more accurate and more valid. The next step is to identify any gaps between what exists now and what should be. The next step is to establish a development plan about what needs to be done to close any gaps, for example, with new learning. Don't spend too much time on this development plan, because many times the action learning process itself helps to get real clear on what needs to be done, including to identify what actions need to be taken, and even whether the gaps are filled or not. Then the development plan is implemented. Here too, the action learning process can help to ensure that the plan is actually implemented and that people learn at the same time. After the plan has been implemented, then the performance is measured again. If the focus of the project is on individual development, then the member might compare her current capabilities to any best practices established by the industry for her job or by her company, or any certain competencies, that is, knowledge, skills, and abilities suggested for her role, or any skills needed to achieve goals in strategic or business plans, or even in career development plans. Many times, it's very easy to identify a current problem to solve. Action learning is great for clarifying what needs to be done to solve those problems. From the comparison of current capabilities to these performance standards, certain gaps might be identified. Then, individuals can choose projects and action learning that will close those gaps. Action learning is great for generating relevant and realistic actions to address those projects, and for learning at the same time. When choosing a project, it might be helpful to glance at some typical results that individuals aim for when using action learning. A member might choose a project to achieve one of these results, for example, to get more career development or advancement, job satisfaction, more money, more professional development, and especially more work-life balance. Or the member might aim to have less barriers to progress, less conflicts and confusion, certainly less expenses, less physical ailments, or less stress. We've customized programs to address each of these results. Usually, if an organization is considering the action learning process, then it has already noticed a problem at some level, and it already wants to improve certain activity in that level. So, when it did a formal or an informal assessment, the organization has already compared activities to best practices or performance standard for that certain level. For example, if a problem appeared at the team level, then the organization might have compared that team's performance to some standards. The same approach might have been used about a certain function, such as planning, marketing, sales, manufacturing, financial management, and so on, or a cross-functional process, such as product development or quality management. The organization might have compared itself to any best practices or standards for organizations in that particular industry. Also, the organization could even reference certain goals from its strategic or business plans. Then, the organization could select a project to close the gap between the project needed to solve the problem or to achieve the goal. Action learning is great for identifying relevant and realistic actions, again, to close those gaps and to learn at the same time. Similar to selecting desired results for individual development, it might help to glance at some typical results for organizational development when choosing a project for action learning. For example, an organization might use action learning to be getting more compliance, more innovation, more market share, more productivity, certainly more profit, and oftentimes more quality. Or the organization might want to be getting less of something, for example, having less customer concerns, employee conflicts, employee turnover, expenses, certainly less lead time to market, and less project delays. We've done projects with these as well. A rather common question from those who are new to action learning is, what if I choose the wrong project? If members choose a project that initially focuses more on the symptoms of a problem than on its real causes, the action learning process soon helps them to realize that. Because the process guides members to continually examine their conclusions and to keep verifying them with ongoing actions. Very soon, members are working on real causes because they very quickly dug through the symptoms by using ongoing reflections and actions. If the project is not a problem but is an opportunity, then the process helps members to identify relevant and realistic actions to take advantage of that opportunity as well. If members start out with actions that aren't really effective, then the process soon helps members to realize that too by using ongoing reflections and actions. Just be sure that the choice of the project is something that's current, real, and very important, and you should be okay over time. Publications about the action learning process write about how the process is used for various applications. They often give guidelines and other useful advice about how to use the process for each of these applications. You'll remember from earlier presentations that an application is the nature or the category of a program, such as leadership development, management development, team building, or problem solving. It's very useful to know what type of application your project is, so that you can reference advice from experts in that application. So it might be very useful at this point to review the list of applications that were mentioned in the previous presentation, Types of Results from Action Learning. You can find that from the home page of this series at actionlearningcentral.com/gratis. Thank you for viewing this presentation. We hope that you will go on to the next one. You might benefit from the following resources to add even more detail to our overviews of action learning. The website Action Learning Central references an extensive amount of free resources, including about the action learning process, each of its key elements, examples of action learning programs, and tools for each aspect of action learning. There's even an action learning glossary with definitions for each of the common terms in action learning. Our company, Authenticity Consulting, also is available to answer your questions or to help you in any other way. Our firm does very successful action learning groups around the world and for a wide variety of outcomes and applications. There's also the free management library at managementhelp.org. You can find resources and tools for almost any activity in the workplace, including for many of the activities in action learning. You can find more about each of these three resources by going to actionlearningcentral.com/gratis and select the presentation entitled General Resources for Action Learning. Thank you.